Hello, my friends. Welcome to Storyline History. I hope you are having a peaceful day. Today, I want to tell you the story of a man who changed the course of history. His name was Abraham Lincoln. For more than 150 years, people have remembered his courage, his honesty, and his determination. Many know him as one of America's greatest presidents. Others remember him as the man who helped end slavery. But very few people know where his journey truly began. Imagine growing up in a tiny wooden cabin, with no electricity, no comfortable bed, and almost no books. Imagine working on a farm from sunrise until sunset, yet still finding the strength to learn every night. Imagine believing that knowledge could change your future, even when the world expected nothing from you. That was Abraham Lincoln's life. He was not born into a wealthy family. He was not born with power. Everything he achieved, he earned through hard work, through patience, and through an endless desire to learn. This is not only the story of a president. It is the story of perseverance. It is the story of hope. It is the story of a young boy who refused to let poverty decide his future. If you enjoy discovering history through simple English stories, please subscribe to Storyline History. Now, let's travel back to the early years of 19th century America. The year was 1809. The place was Hardin County, Kentucky. The American frontier was still wild. Dense forests covered the land. Small farms stood far apart. Life was difficult. Every family worked hard simply to survive. On February 12th, inside a small one-room log cabin, a baby boy was born. His parents named him Abraham Lincoln. No one in that quiet cabin could have imagined that this child would one day lead a nation through its darkest chapter, or that his name would be remembered across the world. His journey was only just beginning. Abraham's family was poor, very poor. They had little money, very few possessions, and almost no books. But there was one thing young Abraham never lost: his curiosity. He wanted to understand the world around him. Every new question led to another. Every answer made him want to learn more. His father expected him to work on the farm. From an early age, Abraham carried heavy buckets of water. He chopped wood. He planted crops. He cared for the animals. The work was long. The work was exhausting. But even after a full day of labor, his mind was still searching for knowledge. There were no proper schools nearby. Teachers rarely visited the frontier. Most children received very little education. Abraham refused to accept that. Whenever he found a book, he treated it like a treasure. He borrowed books from neighbors. Sometimes he walked for miles just to borrow a single book. And when he finally held it in his hands, he read every page with great care. He read by the light of a fireplace. He read by the light of a candle. He read whenever he found a quiet moment. Each book opened a new world. History fascinated him. Mathematics challenged him. The Bible taught him valuable lessons. Stories of great leaders filled his imagination. He did not simply read. He thought deeply about every sentence. He asked himself questions. He searched for meaning. Paper was expensive. His family could not afford to waste it. So Abraham found other ways to practice. Sometimes he wrote on wooden boards. Sometimes he wrote on smooth pieces of wood. Sometimes he traced letters in the dirt with a stick. Nothing stopped him from learning. Then life brought another painful challenge. When Abraham was only 9 years old, his mother, Nancy Hanks Lincoln, became seriously ill. There was no doctor nearby. There was no medicine that could save her. Day by day, she grew weaker, until one quiet autumn morning, she passed away. The loss changed Abraham forever. He loved his mother deeply. She had taught him kindness. She had taught him honesty. Most importantly, she had encouraged him to learn for a long time. The little cabin felt empty. The laughter disappeared. The warmth was gone. But about a year later, his father married again. His new wife was Sarah Bush Johnston. She was kind, patient, and understanding. She quickly noticed something special about Abraham. She saw his love for books. Instead of asking him to stop reading, she encouraged him. She brought more books into the house. She gave him time to study. She believed the quiet young boy could become someone extraordinary. Years later, Abraham would never forget her kindness. Without Sarah's support, his journey might have been very different. The boy who dreamed beside a candle was slowly becoming a young man with a purpose, and before long, he would leave the farm behind. He would begin searching for a place in the world, a journey that would eventually lead him toward law, politics, and history itself. In the next part, Abraham leaves home. He teaches himself the law, and a poor farm boy begins the remarkable journey toward becoming one of America's greatest leaders. As Abraham grew older, he became known throughout his community, not because he was wealthy, not because he came from an important family, but because people trusted him. He worked many different jobs. He split logs to build fences. He helped guide flatboats along the Mississippi River. He worked in small stores. He did whatever honest work he could find. Every job taught him something new. Every challenge made him stronger. During his travels, he met people from many different backgrounds. He listened to their stories. He learned about their struggles. And he began to understand how unfair life could be. One journey changed him forever. While visiting New Orleans, Abraham witnessed slavery with his own eyes. He saw men, women, and children being bought and sold like property. Families were separated. Children cried for their parents. Parents begged to stay with their children, but no one listened. Abraham stood silently. He could not forget what he had seen. That painful memory remained with him for the rest of his life. Years later, it would influence one of the most important decisions he would ever make. By now, Abraham knew he wanted a different future. He did not want to spend his entire life working on a farm. He wanted to help people. He wanted to understand the law. But there was another problem. He had no money for college, no teacher to guide him, no formal education. So he did what he had always done. He taught himself. He borrowed law books whenever he could. He read them late into the night. He studied every page, every sentence, every idea. Slowly, the complicated language of the law began to make sense. After years of determination, Abraham passed the examination. He became a lawyer. It was an extraordinary achievement. A poor boy with almost no education had entered one of the most respected professions in America. Soon, people across Illinois began asking for his help. He was known as an honest lawyer. He never lied to win a case. He never cheated his clients. If he believed someone was wrong, he told them the truth, even if it meant losing money. His honesty earned him respect. Judges trusted him. Clients admired him. Friends believed every word he said. That reputation followed him everywhere. But Abraham wanted to do more than solve legal problems. He wanted to improve people's lives. He believed good leadership could change a community, and before long, he made a decision that would shape the rest of his life. He entered the world of politics. It was the first step toward a destiny that no one could yet imagine. In the next part, Abraham Lincoln enters politics. He meets Mary Todd, and a little-known lawyer begins the remarkable journey toward the White House. Abraham Lincoln had become a respected lawyer. People admired his honesty. They admired his calm nature, and they admired the way he treated everyone with respect. But Abraham believed serving one person at a time was not enough. He wanted to serve his country. So, he entered politics. His speeches were simple. He did not use complicated words. He spoke in a way that ordinary people could understand. He believed that good ideas should be clear, not confusing. People listened carefully. They trusted him. Before long, Abraham was elected to the Illinois state legislature. He was still a young man, but he already believed that every citizen deserved fairness, every citizen deserved opportunity, and every citizen deserved a voice. As his political career grew, someone very special entered his life. Her name was Mary Todd. Mary came from a wealthy family. She was intelligent. She loved books. She enjoyed discussing politics. The two spent many hours talking together. They shared dreams. They shared ideas. And slowly, they fell in love. Their relationship was not always easy. They had many disagreements. For a time, they even separated. Many people believed they would never marry. But their story was not over. In 1842, Abraham and Mary were married. Together, they built a home in Springfield, Illinois, in the years that followed. They welcomed 4 sons into their family. Abraham loved being a father. Whenever he could, he played with his children. He laughed with them. He told them stories. But happiness did not last forever. 2 of their young sons died during childhood. The losses brought great sorrow to the family. Abraham rarely spoke about his pain, but those who knew him could see it in his eyes. Even during difficult times, he continued moving forward. He continued serving others. As the years passed, the question of slavery became impossible to ignore. America was deeply divided. Many people believed slavery should continue. Others believed it was morally wrong. Abraham could no longer remain silent. He spoke openly against the spread of slavery. Not everyone agreed with him. Some people praised his courage. Others attacked him for his beliefs. Then, in 1858, he challenged one of the most powerful politicians in America. His name was Stephen Douglas. The 2 men traveled across Illinois. They stood before thousands of people, and they debated the future of the nation. Again and again, Abraham spoke about freedom. He spoke about justice. He spoke about the future America should build. Although he lost the election, something unexpected happened. Newspapers across the country printed his speeches. Millions of Americans learned his name for the first time. The lawyer from Illinois was no longer unknown. And before long, a new opportunity would appear, one that would change his life forever. In the next part, Abraham Lincoln runs for President of the United States, but his victory will push the nation to the edge of civil war. In 1860, a remarkable opportunity appeared. The leaders of the Republican Party chose Abraham Lincoln as their candidate for President of the United States. Many Americans were surprised. He was not the richest man. He was not the most famous politician. But people trusted him. They believed he was honest. They believed he would protect the country. As Abraham traveled across the nation, he spoke about unity. He spoke about justice. He spoke about hope. He believed America could remain one nation. He believed its people could build a better future together, but not everyone agreed. The question of slavery had divided the country. Northern states wanted to stop its expansion. Many southern states believed slavery should continue. The disagreement grew deeper every day. People feared the nation was moving toward disaster. Then on November 6, 1860, the results were announced. Abraham Lincoln had been elected President of the United States. The poor boy from a small log cabin had reached the highest office in the nation. For many Americans, it was a moment of hope. For others, it was a reason for anger, even before Abraham took office. Several southern states announced they would leave the Union. They formed a new government. They called themselves the Confederate States of America. The country was breaking apart. Abraham had not yet entered the White House, yet the greatest challenge of his life had already begun. On March 4, 1861, he stood before a large crowd. He took the oath of office. He became the 16th President of the United States. In his first inaugural address, he asked the nation to remain united. He begged his fellow Americans to choose peace instead of war. But events were already moving too quickly. Just 1 month later, Confederate forces attacked Fort Sumter in South Carolina. The American Civil War had begun. Families were divided. Brothers fought against brothers. Friends found themselves on opposite sides of the battlefield. No one knew how long the war would last. No one knew how many lives would be lost. Every decision Abraham made carried enormous responsibility. He knew that the future of the United States rested on his shoulders. He faced criticism from every direction. Some believed he was too cautious. Others believed he was too bold. But Abraham remained focused on one goal: to preserve the Union. No matter how difficult the journey became, no matter how great the sacrifice, he refused to give up, because he believed some causes were worth every struggle. In the next part, the Civil War reaches its darkest days. Abraham Lincoln makes one of the most important decisions in American history, and a single document begins to change the meaning of the war forever. The Civil War had begun. What many people believed would last only a few weeks continued for months. Then months became years, battle after battle. The number of dead continued to rise. Entire towns lived in fear. Thousands of families waited for letters that never arrived. Across the country, the pain of war could be felt everywhere. Abraham Lincoln carried that burden every single day. He visited military camps. He met wounded soldiers. He comforted grieving families. Every loss weighed heavily on his heart, but he believed the nation could not give up. The Union had to survive. As the war continued, Abraham began to think about something even greater. He believed the war was not only about saving the United States, it was also about human freedom. For generations, millions of African Americans had lived in slavery. They had no freedom, no legal rights, and no control over their own lives. Abraham knew history had given him a rare opportunity. If the Union won, the future of slavery could be changed forever. On January 1, 1863, he signed one of the most important documents in American history. It was called the Emancipation Proclamation. The document declared that enslaved people in the Confederate States were to be free. It did not end slavery everywhere immediately, but it changed the purpose of the war. Now, the struggle was not only to preserve the Union, it was also a fight for freedom. The announcement reached people across America. For many enslaved families, it became a symbol of hope, a hope they had waited for all their lives. Around the world, many nations watched the conflict closely. They saw that the war had become more than a political struggle. It had become a battle over human liberty. Later that same year, another historic moment arrived. The Battle of Gettysburg ended after 3 terrible days of fighting. Thousands of soldiers had lost their lives. The fields were silent once again, but the cost had been unimaginable. Several months later, Abraham traveled to Gettysburg. A ceremony was being held to honor the fallen. Many people expected a long speech. Instead, the president spoke for only a few minutes. His words were simple, but they carried enormous meaning. He reminded the nation that freedom must never be taken for granted. He reminded the people that those who had died had given everything for a better future. The speech became known as the Gettysburg Address. More than a century later, people around the world still study those words. They remain one of the greatest speeches ever delivered. But although hope was growing, the war was not yet over. Thousands of soldiers were still fighting, thousands of families were still waiting, and Abraham Lincoln still faced the greatest test of his presidency. In the next part, the Civil War finally comes to an end. The Union is saved, but just when the nation begins to celebrate, a heartbreaking tragedy changes America forever. 4 long years had passed. The Civil War had changed America forever. Cities had been destroyed. Families had been separated. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers had lost their lives. The nation was exhausted. But at last, the end was near. In the spring of 1865, Union forces continued to move forward. One by one, the Confederate armies began to surrender. Then, on April 9, 1865, General Robert E. Lee surrendered his army at Appomattox Courthouse. The Civil War was finally over. The Union had survived, for millions of Americans. It was a moment of great relief. Church bells rang across the country. People filled the streets. Flags waved in the wind. Many believed a brighter future had finally arrived. Abraham Lincoln was relieved, but he did not celebrate with anger. He did not speak of revenge. Instead, he spoke of healing. He believed the nation could only move forward through forgiveness. He wanted the North and the South to become one people again. He wanted old enemies to build a new future together. His words gave hope to many, but peace had arrived too late for some. The war had left deep scars, and not everyone accepted its outcome. Only a few days after the war ended, on the evening of April 14, 1865, Abraham Lincoln went to Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. He wanted a quiet evening. He wanted a few hours away from the burdens of leadership. As the audience watched the play, a man quietly entered the president's private box. His name was John Wilkes Booth. He was an actor, and he strongly supported the Confederate cause. Without warning, he fired a single shot. The theater fell silent. Then panic spread through the crowd. Doctors rushed to help the president, but the injury was too severe. Throughout the night, they remained by his side. On the morning of April 15th, Abraham Lincoln passed away. He was 56 years old. The news spread across America within hours. People could hardly believe it. Many stood in silence. Many openly wept. The nation had lost the man who had guided it through its darkest years. His funeral train traveled through city after city. Thousands gathered along the railway. Some removed their hats. Others placed flowers beside the tracks. Many simply stood quietly, wanting to say goodbye. Although Abraham Lincoln was gone, his work was not finished. The country he had saved now faced the difficult task of rebuilding, and the ideals he had defended would continue to inspire generations to come. In the final part, we explore Abraham Lincoln's lasting legacy and discover why, more than a century later, his name is still remembered as a symbol of courage, honesty, and freedom. Abraham Lincoln was gone, but his story was far from over. The United States had survived its greatest crisis. The Union remained together, and slavery would soon become illegal throughout the country. Later in 1865, the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution was officially adopted. It permanently abolished slavery in America. It was a historic moment, one that Lincoln had worked toward throughout his presidency. although he did not live to see every step of the nation's recovery. His leadership had changed the course of history. The years after the Civil War were not easy. The country faced enormous challenges. Cities had to be rebuilt. Families had to rebuild their lives. Old wounds needed time to heal, but the principles Lincoln believed in continued to guide the nation. Honesty, justice, freedom, and equality. These were not just words to him. They were values he tried to live by every day. Perhaps that is why people still remember him. Not because he was perfect, but because he never stopped trying to do what he believed was right. He was born in a small log cabin. He received very little formal education. He faced failure. He experienced heartbreaking loss. He carried the weight of a nation at war. Yet, he refused to lose hope. His journey proved something remarkable. Your beginning does not decide your future. Your circumstances do not define your destiny. With determination, with integrity, and with a willingness to keep learning, one person can change the lives of millions. Today, more than 150 years after his death, visitors from around the world still travel to the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. They stand before the great marble statue, they read his words, and they remember the man who helped preserve a nation. His speeches continue to be studied, his leadership continues to inspire, his life continues to remind us that true greatness is measured not by wealth or power, but by character, and by the courage to stand for what is right. Thank you for joining me on this journey through history. I hope Abraham Lincoln's story has inspired you. If you enjoy discovering history through simple English storytelling, please subscribe to Storyline History. There are many more incredible stories waiting to be explored. Stories of great civilizations, remarkable leaders, brilliant inventors, fearless explorers, and the people who changed our world forever. Until our next journey, take care of yourself. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep exploring the stories that shaped our world. Goodbye.